The link between Turkey and ISIS. Um, I think it's been briefly mentioned so far. Uh, is now a good time to talk about that?
Sure. Turkey Turkey has links with not only ISIS but also other Islamist groups in the Middle East and in Syria, such as Al Qaeda and such as other Syrian National Army factions and brigades. To contextualize this, the Turkish state has pursued a more neo-Ottoman regional policy since Erdogan came to power in Turkey in 2011, yeah, early 2012. Before that, since since the foundation of the republic in 1923, Turkey had sort of like been facing to the West and dealing diplomatically with Western countries, trying to enter NATO, which it later succeeded, trying to enter the European Union, and was engaging with the West. And with Erdogan's party, AKP, coming into power, the diplomatic way of relating to the neighbors also changed. Neo-Ottomanism, both at home in Turkey and in its diplomatic relations internationally, was adopted as the ideology, meaning sort of returning to good old Ottoman glory days. Uh, Under this approach, Turkey has been very active in Middle Eastern and North African politics over the past 10 years. Yeah, this new Ottomanist policy kicked off a little, 12, 13 years ago. A few years after coming into power, Erdogan and his ministers started adopting this policy, spanning from Morocco to Algeria to Libya to ranging to Qatar and Nagorno-Karabakh, Syria. Turkey has been involving in the national politics of these regions and supporting different oppositional groups which rise up and clash against the governments there, such as in Syria and Libya. Uh, and Turkey has been using this with a religious rhetoric, just like Erdogan has been gaining support both at home and internationally by using an Islamist rhetoric. Turkey has been using a religious Islamist rhetoric in its recruitment of mercenaries and its involvement in the affairs of other countries in the region to, at the end of the day, to increase its own power and influence over the region. So, in this context, in the Syrian civil war, Turkey has heavily used any Islamist faction that it can find and control. There are reports of Turkish communication and collaboration with Al Qaeda in Syria, Hayat Tahrir al Sham. Putin himself had made comments in late 2015 when Turkish airplane shot on a Russian airplane in Syrian airspace. Putin was threatening to make public documents of Erdogan's ministers and Erdogan's family members making oil trade and other trade with ISIS. Turkish journalists have exposed Turkish state trucks that were sent to ISIS and Al Qaeda controlled parts of Syria, mounted with guns and ammunitions and all sorts of death machines. So Turkey, through this pursuit of Islamist neo-Ottomanist expansion in the region, has been causing up to jihadists all across the world.
The incident I was referring to took place earlier this year, I believe. I was made aware of it because I was helping through telecommunication to teach students in Rojava English. And there was a moment where the students were afraid to go back to school because there was a prison break of ISIS, trying to extract other ISIS members. and then if I remember correctly, they took hostages in one of the schools, and then the school was bombed without permission. And correct me if I'm wrong, but by the United States, and the faculty was killed. Um, and at least that's how we understood it at the time. And the students were terrified. They didn't want to go back to school because there was rumors that ISIS was potentially at the school, to escalate the war, and at university in a public education setting. Um, yeah, that's what came to mind earlier. And it's sad that by default, United States citizens and residents, our money, our resources, our labor is going to support uh, this annexation, occupation, ethnic cleansing, genocide across seas. And it's just one other realm in which this is taking place. But
I do remember the incident now. Thank you, Chris, for the reminder. This happened, yeah, like you said, like maybe 6, 7 months ago. There was a big ISIS prison break in Al Hol camp, uh, located close to Haseke in eastern Syria. Al Hol is the biggest camp of ISIS prisoners and their family members. And even though ISIS doesn't hold any territorial control anymore, it's still clandestinely organized. And inside the prison, it's organized too. And I think close to, yeah, more than 100. I don't remember the exact number, but a few hundred ISIS prisoners collaborated and made a prison break. I think around 400 managed to escape temporarily, uh, and killed dozens of Rojava security officials during their escape. And the U.S. forces and autonomous administration forces rapidly responded to capture the few hundred ISIS prisoners that had spread into nearby towns and villages, the ones that are close to Al Holkam.
you
In
can
this attempt to capture these 300-400 ISIS prisoners, autonomous administration and U.S. forces uh, began this military operation. And in its implementation, as you pointed out, uh, not only ISIS members were harmed, but also civilians were harmed, including some students and faculty that were held hostage by ISIS prisoners that had escaped. Yeah, like you said, the U.S. Role in the region can be much more constructive and much more uh, positive if it can have a stronger stance against the threats of Turkish invasion, against the threats of Syrian invasion, and a deeper support, uh, both politically, diplomatically, and economically and socially, a deeper support for the autonomous administration of North and East Syria.
And just to add that prison outbreak attempt is another good example of the ties between Turkey and ISIS, because there is evidence collected by the autonomous administration, by journalists on the ground, that Turkey was supporting those ISIS cells, those ISIS prisoners who were organizing the outbreak. And then when the outbreak happened, Turkey actually targeted a vehicle of the SDF, of the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is the military arm of the autonomous administration, that was bringing reinforcement, that was bringing support to the autonomous administration's forces battling against the prisoners, the ISIS prisoners who were trying to break out. So, the Turkish support was quite clear at that point. And you're right, the United States policy is extremely contradictory, and this is a very good example. Right, while the United States was taking action against this prison outbreak, and supporting, as part of its support for the autonomous administration, which is the key actor in the U.S.-led global coalition against ISIS. Right at the same time, the NATO member, the U.S. ally, the country that receives on a regular basis the United States weaponry and financial aid and all the kinds of military equipment, it was taken action to support ISIS and to enable them to successfully break out. So it's very, very glaring contradiction there, where the funding goes, where our taxpayer money go. Right?
I remember when ISIS was in large part destroyed. Um, there there was news coming from Rojava saying that ISIS will reemerge if we don't deal with the entire structure and system that enables ISIS to operate, and that includes Turkey. Um, and I don't know if they said this, but I'm saying this, that includes American passivity or inactivity on this, because America, United States government makes this stuff possible, and only United States residents can change that.